We're going to go over the Russian Revolution a little bit today. If you have your review book, and I hope you do whenever you sit down for these things, I hope you have your review book. Please open it up to Chapter 8. All right, Chapter 8 should say Revolution and Totalitarianism in Russia, the causes and impacts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot a little video here, and there's going to be some questions that you're going to need to answer as the video goes along. So try to pay attention the best you can and answer the questions the best you can. So when you start to look at your review book's a great resource because it's got key people and terms, it's got key themes and concepts. All these things are really important, and they're all right there in the beginning. Oh, you might be asking yourself, why am I shooting this whole video in black and white? It's because this happened a long time ago, so I thought I'd go with the old-timey theme. All right, let's dig in. So absolutism in Tsarist Russia. Now, as we talked in class, there was a lot of reasons why the Russians would be upset with absolutism. The Tsar, in general, was a poor leader. Historically speaking, not the worst leader in the world. He just seemed a little disinterested in leading. That led to peasant unrest. On top of that, we've got the Industrial Revolution coming along, and we've got Marxists and communists and nationalists and all these ists all over the place. All right. In the meantime, social conditions were getting really bad. So if you look at page 138 in your review book, you'll see halfway down, it starts talking about the freeing of the serfs. Believe it or not, Russia had serfs for a long time. You might remember serfs from Global One. Those are peasants who are tied to the land. Now, one of the important things is Russification. Russification is the idea or the attempt to make all groups think and act and believe as Russians. It's a real nationalist thing. It's really trying to unite the country. Now, if you turn the page along, you get to page like 140, you see Revolution and Communist Totalitarianism. So the revolutions of 1905, we addressed that just briefly earlier this week. And as you start to go through this review book, you're going to see World War I and the end of Tsarist rule on page 141. You've got a nation in chaos, the March Revolution, failure of a provisional government. Now, just remember, in the backdrop of this, you've got that controversy with people like Rasputin, who proved to the people that the Tsar and the Tsarina may not be good decision makers. Just remember Rasputin, all right? He drowned in that river after getting stabbed, shot, and beaten, and poisoned. Now, if you go back into the review book, which doesn't really mention Rasputin, that's one of those fun things about history, is that there's so much to talk about. Now, you'll see a nation in chaos. So they didn't have a lot of industry. Russia was quickly, throughout the 1800s, falling behind the other European countries. So when the war broke out in 1914, they went out to fight, and the Tsar famously said, "Find your weapons amongst the dead," because they didn't have the modern rifles or machinery. They just had lots of people, and a lot of people died in Russia. In fact, the counts of how many people died in World War I in Russia, nobody knows for sure. So the Bolshevik Revolution takes hold in Russia in 1917, and it's people like Vladimir Lenin and Leon Trotsky who are going to use these Marxist ideas to unify Russia. And it's weird because they use Marxism and nationalism, and they use it to become the glue of what's going to be a society that's going to last until 1991 when the Soviet Union falls. And predominantly, they're running a communist system. Now, we've addressed communism in class. We all know that communism and socialism are different. Then we throw in words like Marxism, and a lot of kids are like, I don't know what all that means. Just remember, communism is a strong federal government who controls everything, all aspects of life, particularly financial aspects of life. Socialism, there tends to be a capitalist mix with a socialist idealism. This is like what I tell kids all the time. A great example of socialism are fire trucks or snowplows. We like to have them when we need them, but we don't necessarily want to park them in our driveway. All right, so when we start to think about these revolutionary ideas, Lenin's going to gain a lot of support. And as it says in your review book, Lenin gained the support of many people by making promises of peace, land, and bread, or as I often say in class, peace, bread, and land, because I think it flows a little better. The Bolsheviks promised an end to the Russian involvement in the war. They promised land reform and an end to food shortages. That was important. People were starving. So Lenin takes over. In November of 1917, the Bolsheviks led soldiers, sailors, and factory workers in an uprising that overthrew the government. Now, after Lenin takes over, as you guys know, Lenin and the Bolsheviks will assassinate the Tsar, the Tsarina, and all of their kids. So what happens next for Russia? Well, Russia's going to slowly evolve over the next couple of years. They're going to withdraw from World War I. There's going to be a period of time called the Russian Civil War. It doesn't get a lot of press in history, which is kind of normal for Russia because they really kept close. They really kept a closed-down society for so long. Lots of times, honestly, we're just still now learning a lot of things about Russia. But they had a civil war from 1918 to 1921 where the Bolsheviks fought against the Mensheviks. Now, Bolshevik, fun word to say. Menshevik, not quite as fun, but it's still a fun word to say. By 1922, the Bolsheviks are clearly in power with a one-party government system. Now, who are you going to argue with if there's only one party? And that's really what happened here. And the Bolsheviks will consolidate power, and they consolidate power in such a way that opposition is actually scared of them or scared to speak out. They use groups like the Cheka to check the other people in society. Everybody feared that the Cheka were around the corner or were listening in on conversations or intercepting mail, or maybe it was your neighbor who was a member of the Cheka, or your brother or sister or husband or wife. It was really a scary time, a lot of anxiety. Now, as it says in your review book, if you were to look on page like 142, the Soviet Union is going to be established in 1922, and the Soviet Union is going to be a collection of all of the Russian states. So not just Russia, but the other states around Russia, like the Ukraine, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Georgia, Belarus, all these different countries that are, different areas that are countries today, and you might have heard of. They are separate republics within the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union is going to last until 1991. Now, Lenin's going to die in 1924, and that's going to end the reign of Russia's first communist leader. It was short. However, one of the party faithful was a young man named Joseph Stalin. And Trotsky and Joseph Stalin, for quite a few years, are going to kind of push each other for power. Trotsky was Lenin's hand-picked guy. But a lot of people didn't like Trotsky. He was a little aloof, and he wasn't really good with people. Stalin was a man of the people, and everybody loved Stalin. Stalin is still popular in Soviet history. In fact, when they have anniversaries to different events in which Stalin participated in, and they have like a festival kind of atmosphere in some of the Soviet towns still for Stalin. Now, over time, you're going to see Stalin in the communist dictatorship as it breaks it down to 143. He's going to have totalitarian rule for about the next 20 years. Stalin is going to pursue ruthless policies, things that we're going to be addressing in class a little bit more over time, but these policies we're going to be addressing because they impacted societies, not just the Soviet Union. He's going to participate in a thing called the Great Purge. He's going to launch the Great Purge because he's going to accuse thousands of people of crimes. He wants them out of the government. So under Stalin, he's going to promote this Russification idea, and he's going to take it one step further. In fact, the Soviet society, is going to become so closed in that young people growing up in that society are going to know nothing about the outside world initially until they become adults. So the Russification under Stalin, as it says in the bottom of 143, he promoted Russian history, language, and culture, sometimes forbidding the cultural practice of the native people. He's trying to dissolve nationalism. He wants everybody to collectively see themselves as Russians first. He wants assimilation into Russian society. He appointed Russians to keep posts in government and the secret police. So now you've got a solely Russian, remember Russia is just a province within the Soviet Union, so you've got a solely Russian control over the whole area, which is kind of ironic because Joseph Stalin was from Georgia, not Georgia where the devil went down south, but Georgia, which is a southern province within the Soviet Union. Now, he redrew the boundaries of many republics to ensure that non-Russians would not gain a majority. We call that in the United States gerrymandering, where we actually try to redraw districts so certain political parties will get control. Well, he gerrymandered the country to make sure Russians, people who were ethnically Russians, would keep control. So life under the Soviet Union, or under Stalin in the Soviet Union, was not a great place to be. And history doesn't treat Stalin very well for it, okay? Very authoritative, very restrictive. Now, he's going to develop a thing called a command economy, which is the last thing we're going to talk about. Stalin is going to force the country into a situation where they're going to industrialize, and they're going to industrialize very quickly. Industrialization will be structured under 5-year plans. His 5-year plans are to build industry and increase farm output. Remember, more food, more babies. So as he increases farm output, he increases the amount of workers he has available over time. He's going to also participate in a thing called collectivization. Collectivization, he's going to force the peasants to give up their small farms and live on state-owned farms or collectives to maximize their output. All right, this is going to result in famines throughout the Soviet Union where they're not going to have control of their own food. So because they have to ship their own food out, they don't keep enough food locally. So there's going to be some forced famines. We're going to be addressing this in the near future, but I wanted you to at least hear some of those words now. All right, so that's it for a brief review of the Russian Revolution. Thanks for listening. Just remember, have a little cup of tea, relax, and read your review book. There's nothing that'll make you fall asleep faster than reading your social studies review book. So take a nap. Take care. Bye.